Hey guys, how are you doing? It's Catherine, and I am so excited to talk to you today because this video is about one of my favorite things ever, which is Midjourney. I have been playing with Midjourney non-stop for about the last 6 to 8 months. I've generated about 50,000 jobs with Midjourney. That is a role. A job is when you create an image, you generate an image. So I've done that about 50,000 times with Midjourney. In some ways, Midjourney is like chess. Like, it's really, really easy to learn, to get the hang of the rules. But guys, you can spend forever mastering it. In some ways, I still feel like a noob, even though, as I say, I've been playing with it non-stop for several months. But I love Midjourney. I think it is a really amazing, amazing tool. It has allowed me to just bring so much from my mind, from my imagination, from my fantasy, and put that into images that I would never in a million years be able to draw or create in any other way. I mean, I would love it if I could take art lessons forever and learn to draw and learn to paint, but I don't have the time for that. But Midjourney lets me visualize, it lets me create the things that are in my mind. And I really, truly love it as a tool. Now, I know it's also been getting a lot of hate. I think a lot of that hate is greatly, greatly misfounded. One of the biggest misconceptions about Midjourney and similar generative art AI products is that they are stealing art from other people. That's really not how it works. The way that Midjourney works is that it is trained on vast amounts of images, talking stock photography, everything you could find in Google Images. It has looked at everything. And what it has done is basically learned, like a toddler does, what an apple looks like, what a cat looks like, what a person looks like, what are all the different varieties of that thing. And it has come to understand just all kinds of art styles, movie styles, fashion styles, architecture styles, everything you can think of. Midjourney has kind of put those concepts together so it knows how to create in pretty much any style and pretty much any object or scene or thing that you can conceptualize. And what I love about Midjourney is that it really takes your creativity, your knowledge, your imagination, and I think that's really the biggest thing with Midjourney. In fact, the command that you use in Midjourney to create all these images is /imagine. Whoa! And I think that's actually probably the best command they could have, because I really feel when I'm using Midjourney that I'm using my imagination. And so I love it as a product because it allows me to turn the stuff that's in my head into something that I can actually put out there and share with people and that looks beautiful and awesome. So I'm going to start out talking about some of the projects I've been creating with Midjourney, some of the products I made with it, what I'm doing with it. And then as we go on, I'm going to show you how you can use it. I'm going to share a few of my prompts with you. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll see what an awesome tool it is and how it can be useful for you. I am not in any way paid by Midjourney. I'm not an affiliate of them or anything like that. I just really, really think it is awesome. And I really think it's an opportunity for so many of us who don't have drawing skills or painting skills to be able to actually create what's in our head and communicate those ideas to other people and share those ideas. And here's the thing, guys, I will level with you. My first degree is in performance art. So I love art. I love conceptual art. I love creating things. But drawing has never been my thing. And I love performance art because it's a communication. It allows me to create something with my voice, with my body, with the things around me, and share those with people. And that's what I see in Midjourney. I see it as very much a method for sharing your ideas with people. And in that way, I struggle to see why it gets hate. Because isn't that what art is about? Like expressing your ideas to other people? And what's amazing about Midjourney is it really builds on like the group knowledge, the group experience of everybody. I mean, like all the public domain art that's ever existed, all the great artists that have ever existed. Midjourney allows you to build with this knowledge, these concepts. I mean, what if Van Gogh had painted unicorns? It never happened, but with Midjourney, it could happen. So we're going to explore that. We're going to explore how Midjourney really lets you use your imagination. And I hope by the end of this video, you're going to be as excited as I am about the possibilities of what you can do with it. Also, guys, we have a big announcement. We have a brand new Facebook group. It is called AI Adventure with Catherine and Isaac. There you can see our AI avatars of us there. And this is a great group where you can join in to talk about ChatGPT, Midjourney, using AI with KDP, especially if you're using TT Turbo, which is the new feature in Tangent Templates, which allows you to import data from ChatGPT and turn it into a book. You can also talk about making products like stickers, t-shirts, journals, everything you can think of about AI. We would love to talk to you in that group. So come and join our new group. It's called AI Adventure, facebook.com/group/AI Adventure. We would love to talk to you in there. Also, a quick apology. I might be sounding a little bit husky. This video was delayed because I caught a cold. I am not fully evolved into my cyborg self yet, so sadly still susceptible to catching colds. So that has delayed this video a little bit. But hopefully you can put up with the husky voice. Isaac said it was like when Phoebe got her sexy voice in Friends and she sang the Smelly Cat song with a little bit of the vocal fry. So hopefully you can forgive that and enjoy the video regardless. So before I really get started, I also want to address a couple of questions that come up a lot about AI art. One thing I will say is that AI art is here to stay. It has fully gone mainstream. We're seeing big sites like Adobe now accept stock photography that is AI generated. So I'm really not concerned at this point about using AI art to make products for most platforms like KDP, for example. KDP do not have any policy against AI art, and I don't believe they will, because at this point in time, you can use stock photography on Amazon, and pretty much everyone who has a book has a cover image, and a lot of people are using stock images or they're hiring artists to create those images, and a lot of them are digital artists. At this point, AI art, if it's properly made, is really indistinguishable from any other kind of digital art because tools like Photoshop are already using AI. If you're using background removal, if you're using brushes, anything like that, that's already powered by AI. So I really doubt that Amazon or similar platforms are going to put bans on AI art. I think that's very, very unlikely. In fact, Amazon themselves are using AI in all kinds of ways, and I expect them to keep doing so. In fact, they use AI to review your books. So I don't think they're likely to put a ban on AI-generated art. I do think that they don't like content that disappoints people. So what I would say is make sure that your art is high quality. And I'm going to talk about that in this video as well, how to make sure that your artwork is of the quality that it needs to be on Amazon. I would avoid using free tools that are not generating very high quality images. And this is why I use Midjourney, because I think it is the highest quality AI art you can generate at the moment. For example, I created this with the prompt, beautiful shimmery scene. Very simple prompt, beautiful shimmery scene. I used version 5.1 of Midjourney, and this is what it gave me. That same prompt in Canva created this. So Midjourney, Canva. That same prompt in Creative Fabrica Spark gave me these. So at this point in time, I am a huge, huge fan of Midjourney. You do have to pay for it. It is a paid product, but it so exceeds everything else that I've seen in the market in terms of quality. So that's one of the first things I would say is use Midjourney. I'm going to talk about how you upscale your images at the end of this video as well, because what I will say is that Midjourney images as is, and the same with every other art tool, none of them are actually producing images that are high enough resolution for print. So I am going to address that at the end of this video and tell you how you can upscale your images so they will look amazing in print. So the first thing that I've been creating with Midjourney is, of course, books. And I think I've shown this one before. This is the first book that I created with Midjourney. And this is called Breaking the Simulation. And really, this was kind of an art project for me. Like, I didn't really create it to sell books. I just did it as an experiment because I was having a lot of fun creating a certain style of image. And I really wanted to play with that. So this was my book, Breaking the Simulation. And I think I made this back in sort of January, February, which seems a million years ago now, doesn't it? But this was a book I made with version 4 of Midjourney. And I thought this was just a fun experiment. See, it's kind of got this sci-fi feel where you have people waiting at spaceports. And it also has all the text created with ChatGPT with ideas for if one was in a simulation, how one could escape. So I thought this was a fun conceptual book. It's not my proudest work, but it was one that I just enjoyed making. I've also made a lot of notebooks. I mean, this was a little notebook that I made, of course, with tangent templates and lined paper. You can see, super easy to make a book like this. With tangent templates, you can just grab note paper, say I want 200 pages of this, add your cover, and you could probably make a book like this in about maybe 10 minutes and list it on Amazon. So notebooks are super easy to create. I used it, this is a spell book that I made. I used Midjourney to create the illustrations inside. So you can see that. So you can really use Midjourney to illustrate your book. And I mixed it with spell paper. So this is a cover that I generated in Midjourney here. And you can see that I used the prompt, a beautiful illustration suitable for a cover of a nature journal, spiritual, peaceful, lush, green and blue, full page design, watercolor pencil. So feel free to take that prompt and change it up, change the colors, change some of the adjectives I've used, maybe change it from a nature journal to something else. And hopefully you can have fun with that and create your own covers or something much nicer. It's all up to you. You can create things from your ideas. So that's how I created a simple cover like that. And then inside I used TT Turbo to create the content for this, along with ChatGPT. So you can watch my other video to see how I created the content for that book. Another book I've shown before is the copy of The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, which is, of course, a public domain book. And you can see I've added my own artwork to that I made, again, using Midjourney. There we go. See? Again, I used version 4 of Midjourney to create this book because I made it a couple of months ago. That's another project that you can do using Midjourney. You can illustrate public domain work. So if you're not familiar with KDP, KDP is Amazon's Kindle direct publishing, and it is awesome because you can create books. For KDP, you just make an interior and you make the cover. So it's 2 files. You create a PDF interior and you create a PDF cover. And you upload those to KDP. You give it some information about your book, like the title, the author, a description, keywords, so that people can find your book. And then you upload it. And usually you wait a couple of days. It takes a little bit longer if it's low content. For example, planners and notebooks are low content. Coloring books are not. And you can wait a couple of days. Amazon will publish your book. And then it is available for sale on Amazon.com and any other international Amazons that you specify, which is amazing because every time your book sells, you get a royalty. Basically, Amazon will print your book and send it to the customer. Every time they order the book, Amazon prints it and sends it out. It's print on demand. And they pay you a royalty based off the price of your book minus their printing costs. And their printing costs are higher for color books, although the standard color is actually very affordable now. So they just take away the printing costs and pay you a royalty. So it's really nice. I usually get about $3 to $4 for each of my books each time it sells. So it's a really great system. And some of my coloring books in particular have done really well. I'm going to not dwell too much on coloring books in this video because I think there's quite a bit to coloring books and I want to talk about them in a lot more detail. I've been making a lot of coloring books. Here's one example, this Japanese style coloring book, and you can see there's the images on the back. I put this together with Tangent Templates based off Midjourney artwork, but you can see very clean, nice coloring book. And what I do is I make coloring books in a lot of styles. I'm not a huge fan of going into Midjourney and typing in like dragon format as coloring book, because I think there's some problems with the images. I think there's a lot of shadowiness and grayness in there, even if you say no shadows or shading. And also in versions 5 and 5.1, and even in Niji, a lot of images look like they don't necessarily belong together. So I'm very picky about coloring books, and I really want to make a proper video, or perhaps a class, to go into detail about how I do coloring books. Because I think it's very much about having your own style and creating images that actually go well together and are well niched. I had one book, I mentioned it before, I had one book that sold 89 copies just in the first couple of months completely organically. I didn't have to run any advertising, and that was really nice. I mean, that's a few $100s there. I think the reason it sold so well is because it was in a niche. It's in a niche that people are very emotional about. It's something that people really love. And if they love that thing, they're likely to buy it, especially if there's no competition. So I'm a big fan of creating niched coloring books where there isn't a lot of competition. I stay away from all the chibi, kawaii, all of that stuff, because there's just so much of it. There's nothing wrong with it. You can absolutely publish those books, but I think they're kind of a hard sell now. So I will talk more about coloring books. I make a lot of styles of coloring books. This is another style that I did, which is this kind of cool city themed coloring book, which I think is really fun to color. So yeah, I've got a lot to say about coloring books, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit because I really want to go into those in detail. So let me share a few more of the things I've been making with Midjourney with you. A lot of you are following my Gumroad, where I'm creating image packs for Tangent Templates. And what the image packs are really images that you can add to your books, to your journals. And I've been making these mostly using Midjourney. So if you want an example, here is our Paper Towns image pack. And so many of you have asked for the prompts for this. So I will share my prompts. What I've done is created these very textured pictures. And I love making textured pictures in Midjourney. Creating pictures of things that are like crafts, really, really enjoy. So let's take a look at how I did that. The magic keyword for these images is really paper quilling. If I show you some of these pictures, you can see, like for example here, this one is peaceful, pretty Spanish village, elaborate scene, hygge, I use that again, pastel, papercraft, paper quilling, beautiful. But I would say the key word here is paper quilling. And what you're going to notice as you do prompting with Midjourney is that some keywords have a lot of impact on your image, and some of them have more impact than others. So if you put quilling in there, it tends to create a very strong effect on your image. For example, you can see I created some cruise ship pictures here that I thought would work really well as covers for a cruise journal. And again, I used that paper quilling. So I actually misspelled illustration. Illustration, colorful, and a lot of the time it actually doesn't really mind if you misspell things. It's pretty good at guessing what you meant. But illustration, colorful, tropical travel scene, cruise ship, fun and bright colors, collage, paper quilling, mixed media, contemporary, and that gave me that cover. So you can add whatever colors you want. I put fun and bright colors. I put tropical travel scene. I mean, try putting in Norwegian fjord cruise, and I'm sure it will give you a very different look. Try putting in Arctic cruise or Caribbean cruise, and it will probably give you different styles. So all you need to do is find something that works, a style that you like, and then you can keep adding to it and changing it around. So like, for example, with my other image where it said Spanish village, try doing Alpine village or Sahara village and see what it gives you. You could even put village on the moon And that's what's really fun with Midjourney. You can create things that don't exist. So there's no reason you can't create similar things. You can't create these kind of images yourself. I sell these on Gumroad. I've also made clip art. For example, this Earth Day, I made all this clip art using Midjourney. And yeah, you can make very specific images like this. And I'm sure I'll do another video talking about stickers and clip art, because that's a whole thing too. You can create all kinds of things like that. And I've done a lot of clip art. You can make things like magnets, like all kinds of products you can make with this. And you can make t-shirts. This was one of the first things I made with Midjourney, is this t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. So you can make t-shirts. In fact, I have a project that I haven't actually launched yet. But I was working on a t-shirt store, and I can show you some of the things. And these were all created in version 4. I made these a few months ago, and I haven't got around to opening the store yet, basically because I've been too busy with Tangent Templates and books. But I made a t-shirt store in Shopify. So these were all made with Midjourney. I can show you a couple of things. It's got t-shirts, it's got mugs. So I made this with Shopify. If you want to know more about how I did this, I could talk about this in a future video perhaps. But yeah, that's another thing you can do with your Midjourney images, is make t-shirts, mugs. I love these. You can get some really cool like gothic effects. Let me zoom in on this. Kind of a spooky skull picture. But yeah, I love making t-shirts as well. I've also used Midjourney to make posters for my improv team. I've used it to make pictures for my Facebook group and just to illustrate my Facebook posts. And I want to pause here a moment to talk about copyright. So I think one of the things that really stresses people out is copyright. And so a lot of people come to me and say, well, Catherine, you can't copyright an AI image. Well, that's a really good point, but I have some responses to that. My first response is that you can't copyright a raw AI image. If you've done work on it, if you've added text to it, if you've added any of your own images on top of it, like you've put a mustache on your mermaid or anything like that, that image might be transformative enough to be copyrighted. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not a copyright lawyer. So this is my understanding, is that if you create significant alterations to your Midjourney image, it might be copyrightable, or at least the changes that you add to it are copyrightable. And what does this mean in effect? Well, let's say that you're an image thief and you want to steal some images. Well, the first thing you want to know is this an AI image? And really, if your image is well designed, there is no way to tell. Like, obviously, if you put like wonky fingers and things, that might be a heads up. But if you have designed your image well, a lot of the time it's indistinguishable from any other kind of image. So an image thief would be taking a risk because they don't know whether your image is actually AI or not. And also, they don't know if you've made any alterations to that. So I think the chances of them stealing your work are probably fairly small, especially from a book. There are a lot of image thieves who take images from t-shirts, especially on Amazon merch, but they don't tend to go after books so much because books are harder to copy. A lot of the content is in the book. So it's possible they might take a cover image, but it's less likely because there's usually text on a cover image. There's usually additional stuff going on a cover image. So KDP tends to be less affected by image thieves than, say, merch. My second question is, does it matter that much? My feeling is that you can create more images. Like, if you have the power to generate images, it's not like they're stealing something that you've worked on for hours and days and months. They're stealing an image that you generated. You can generate more images. And as I say, I think AI is going to revolutionize the way we look at intellectual property and the way we work with intellectual property, which I think is going to be very interesting to see. I think it's going to build on a lot of what the open source community have been doing and the philosophies of the open source community, which is that we're all building collective knowledge together. So I think it's going to be very interesting times ahead. So another thing I've been creating recently is planners. And I love planners because I can use Turbo to generate these in about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And Turbo will put the date on it. It will put an affirmation in there. You can put anything in your planner that you like. I will share my prompt because I know so many of you were asking for the prompts for this one. So here it is. These are some of the images. Let's just open up the image. And you can see it says beautiful. Now, I think this word is pronounced hygge. It's Scandinavian. Beautiful hygge scene inside living room with cat. Peaceful Danish pastel. Now, guys, I'm giving you one of my secret keywords here. Danish pastels. I love that one. It makes everything have this really nice, soft, kind of pink and turquoise blue vibe. I love putting Danish pastels in there. Scandinavian, Swedish, Norwegian, pretty folk art, pastel background. So that's my prompt. One thing I will say about prompting, it's not a science. It really is about what you can conceptualize. It's about your ideas and really how you talk to Midjourney to share your ideas with it. And it's interesting because I've been reading a lot of blogs from people who've worked on Midjourney, people who've got MFAs, like Masters of Fine Art, and how they're working with Midjourney. Some of the people who are creating the best images. And a lot of them use surprisingly simple prompts. It kind of backs up how I use Midjourney. And I use it in a couple of ways. I either start with a really simple idea, like hygge scene. I might just type that in and see what it does. And then I might put in hygge scene Danish pastels. And then I just keep adding or taking away various words, adjectives, to see what it does. And really, it's an experiment. A lot of it is an experiment to see what adding different words does. And what you'll find with Midjourney, it's almost like combining colors or combining paints, in that you can go on forever. There really are infinite possibilities with it. You can create any artistic style you imagine. And really interesting things happen when you start combining ideas. Like, what happens if you mix like Tarantino movies with Salvador Dali? What happens if you mix Gustav Klimt with pop art or graffiti? You start getting really, really interesting concepts. I really approach Midjourney in a couple of ways. I approach it with my imagination and a sort of idea of something I want to express. Or I approach it like a treasure hunter. Like if I see something or I hear something on the radio or I hear a song lyric that inspires me, I'll try typing it into Midjourney and see what happens. And then I'll keep playing with it until it gets closer to what I imagine. It's called prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is the art of trying different words, trying different ways to prompt, and seeing what you get. So the great thing with Midjourney is that version 5.1, which is the current version at the time of talking, it's hard to go wrong with it. I mean, I literally just typed 3 words, beautiful shimmery scene. And these are the images I got. In fact, let me do it again. I can do imagine beautiful shimmery scene, let's say with mermaids, and see what it does. I'm running it in fast mode at the moment. So there are actually 2 ways to run Midjourney. You can run it in fast mode or relaxed mode. Fast mode tends to generate your images very quickly, usually in a few seconds. Relaxed mode tends to take a minute or so, but it really depends on the time of day. You do have to pay for fast mode. So when you sign up for an account with Midjourney, it gives you a certain amount of fast hours, depending on the type of account you sign up for. And once you've used up those fast hours, then you have to switch to relaxed or buy more fast hours. My way of dealing with that is that I tend to use relaxed when I'm out and about. So before I leave somewhere, I'll generate as many images as I can in the queue and just let those generate while I'm wandering around. And then I might just like pause to type in an adjustment to a prompt and see how that goes. So there we go, beautiful shimmery scene with mermaids. Looks pretty cool. So I could also go in here and do imagine beautiful shimmery scene with mermaids in style of Van Gogh. Or I could do in style of graffiti. or as 1980s Saturday morning cartoon. And hopefully these will give us some quite different styles of image. So we'll just let those generate. Okay, so those have come in. So let's take a quick look at these. So there's the beautiful shimmery scene of mermaids in the style of Van Gogh. And you can see a little bit of the influence here, a little bit of the starry night going on. And if that's not the image you're thinking of, you could put something else in there like sunflowers. Now, this one, completely different. This one looks like murals. So the way Midjourney works is it generates 4 images at a time. And you have these options underneath. So the U ones are upscale, which will make the image bigger for you so you can download it. So you basically choose the one you want and you upscale that. So I've just upscaled number 4. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the ones underneath of variations. I'm using this a little less these days. When I was using version 4 and it used to mess up the hands and feet and do things like that, I would run a lot more variations because I'd be trying to get the details right. But I found with version 5, version 5.1, you don't need to do that so much because often the first image is the best. But you can absolutely play with variations to see what other images it can give you. In fact, let's do it. We'll do variations form. We'll have a look at that in a moment. Okay, beautiful shimmery scene with mermaids in the style of a 1980s Saturday morning cartoon. So yeah, that kind of fits the bill there. That would be what a 1980s cartoon looks like. And then there's the upscaled version of that graffiti one. And you can see it's working here on the variations. There's with mermaids, Van Gogh, graffiti, and a Saturday morning cartoon. So you can see how you can take a simple concept and really change it up. So there we go. There's our variations of that image 4. So you can pick the one that looks best. I think maybe that one or maybe that one. And then again, you can upscale those. So when I'm working with Midjourney, that's really what I tend to do. Like if I want to create like a Rubik's Cube, I might say, okay, let's do a Rubik's Cube 1980s photo. And then I'm going to see what that looks like. So you can do this with objects as well. So we have Rubik's Cube 1980s photo. It struggles a little bit with precision on things like Rubik's Cubes. If you want to do something wacky, try getting it to draw a chess set. Anything that has very intricate and specific parts, AI sometimes struggles with. It's like an alien trying to figure out a human object. But what I will say is it's getting better all the time of figuring these things out. So these are slightly wonky looking Rubik's Cubes, but we're not going to let that stop us. We're going to keep going with this and we're going to do, imagine Rubik's Cube crocheted. And we'll see how that looks. And I'm also going to try Rubik's Cube. Let's do chrome metal. And let's put some exciting things in there, like Pandora's box. Pandora's box opening. Let's do ornate. Mysterious. And we'll see what that gives us as well. So let's try a couple of variations on this. Oh, we could also do Rubik's Cube made out of expensive chocolates. And for this one, I'm going to change the version. I'm going to put version 5.1 and I'm going to make it raw. And I'm not going to make it go raw. I'm making it raw. And what this does, so Midjourney has numerous versions. The last big version was version 4. I still use version 4 for quite a lot of my work, actually. And the reason I like it is because it gives you a lot of control. So it has some quality issues. It still messes up hands sometimes, but it gives you a lot of control over what you're doing. Version 5.1 is a little bit clever. It makes really beautiful images, but it does a lot of the work itself. So you have a little bit less control. You have to work with it a bit more to get exactly what you want from it. So I do mix it up. If I'm going for photographic work, I tend to focus on version 5.1. If I'm doing more illustrative work, I might go back to version 4. And there's also version 5 in the middle, which I don't use that much anymore because 5.1 just seems to work a lot better and produce better quality images. Now, version 5.1 has 2 variations. It has the regular variation And what's interesting is that the developers of Midjourney say that 5.1, the regular version, is very opinionated, which is their way of saying that it creates what it wants. It uses its knowledge of composition to really do a lot of your job for you and create a beautiful image. Whereas the version 5.1 raw listens a bit more to you and to what you create. So again, you get a little bit more control with 5.1 raw, in my opinion. But for now, I wouldn't stress too much about different versions. There's actually a lot. And in fact, I counted, and I think there's about 7 versions that I use. And those are version 4, which I use for illustrations, version 5 or version 5.1, which I use more for photographs, and the raw, which I actually tend to prefer, the version 5.1 raw. And they've also added Niji. And Niji is fun because it creates very cute anime-inspired versions of your images. And it can do other things. It's really put there for anime fans because there are a lot of anime fans using Midjourney. Oh, there we go. We can have a look at our Rubik's Cubes here. So there's the crocheted Rubik's Cube there. You can see that. I like the quilt one there. That's really fun. And there's our chrome metal Pandora's Box Rubik's Cube. How cool does that look? And then there's our Rubik's Cube made out of expensive chocolates. I've seen better. I'm not super happy with that. Let's run that again, and we'll see. Let's do expensive chocolates, truffles in a box, squares, delicious, luxury. Let's try that. We'll give it a few more words there. And again, I'm going to try the style raw, so we can see how that looks. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit more interesting. A box of chocolates inspired by a Rubik's Cube. But you can see there's a bit of trial and error to really get the result that you're looking for. We'll give it one more go. I'm going to say gold sprinkles, metallic, sparkly. And let's see what adding those does to it. Okay, there we go. These are starting to look kind of interesting. I like this one. That actually looks pretty tasty. You can see there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of just playing with prompts and seeing what you like, what you don't like. If something doesn't work, take it out. If something does work, put more in and try it with something else. A lot of prompt engineering is really just troubleshooting. Like, for example, if you have a picture of a person and they don't look happy, they look grumpy, and in all your pictures, the person that you generate looks grumpy, you can say happy person, smile, friendly. If you do a picture of a car and the car looks kind of dull or is facing the wrong way, then you can say, okay, draw me the car. I want to see it head on, or I want to see it from the side, or I want a shiny car. So a lot of it's just looking at the images that it comes up with and thinking, well, where can I improve this? How could this image be better? And then putting in the words, telling the bot what you want it to do. There are so many ways you can create art. I mean, these are some clip art designs that I've been working on recently. And sometimes I just do things for fun. So there was a story in the news this week about a man who was caught drunk driving, and he tried to switch places with his dog when the police showed up, which is just like the worst idea ever. No, the dog was driving. So, plot twist, what if the dog was the one who was having the beer? So all I did, Newfoundland dog, drinking beer. And this is what Midjourney gave me. And I talked about treasure hunting, and sometimes something will just catch my imagination. So I saw a post a while back, and it was about, what was it? Let me see. I've got to look at my prompt to remember what inspired this. Oh, that was it. The home furnishings market in Chicago, 1961. And I thought that was such a fun idea. Someone showed a picture from this market in Chicago. So I took the concept, the home furnishings market, as an idea, and I put it into Midjourney to see what it could come up with. And I love this is the wave of the future. So I started trying different things with, is this the wave of the future? So I did VR is the wave of the future at the 1961 Chicago home furnishings market. Drones, robots, newfie robots, and so on. And in fact, I think this was Roblox. I was doing Roblox is the wave of the future. And I thought what was so cool was that Midjourney turned Roblox into an actual toy that you could play with. I know my son plays Roblox, and the most popular part of Roblox is Bloxburg, which is like a video game about a little town. So these were, I loved the robot newfie. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. So Midjourney can create things that never existed. There are no robot newfies as far as I'm aware, but you plug it in with that 1961 prompt, and these are the kind of things you can generate. And look, there's Kanye West in 1961. Like, so many fun images just by changing one word. Drone is the wave of the future. iPad Pro tablet is the wave of the future. Kanye West is the wave of the future. And I've got a whole collection of images there. And sometimes I just do things that are kind of self-indulgent. Like, I remember one of my favorite video games when I was growing up was a game called Jinxter. And it was a text adventure. And the credit image of Jinxter, I've got to zoom in because this is a tiny image, even if I click on it, was a carousel with a horse on the front. And then the carousel also showed up later in the game. So I took these images and actually gave it to Midjourney. So you can do image prompts by uploading images to Midjourney. And I added my own prompts and basically recreated the carousel. And I ended up with this image, which I think is pretty awesome. So this was just by using my own nostalgia of this video game that I remembered growing up as a child that's long since gone obsolete. I don't think you can even buy the game anymore. In fact, someone's taken all the games created by this company and put them on a website because they're so old no one would buy them anymore. And there was another location in the game that you got to by crossing this bridge. And you can see these are like these really old, early 90s graphics. And I basically used my imagination to type in the elements of the game. I know there was a lagoon with a boathouse, and it was a green English garden with an orchard nearby. Typed all of that in and ended up getting this picture, and it looks exactly how it was in my imagination. So Midjourney can be so fun for just capturing those things that you imagine, that you think about, that you dream about. I mean, why not type your dreams into Midjourney and see what it comes up with? Like, this is such a great place for you to experiment and to create. Another set of images that I came up with, and this was very accidental actually. I was just for fun trying to generate a picture of what if Isaac and I had a laboratory, what it would look like. And I was trying to create this laboratory, and I added in unicorns and ended up with these like fun pictures here of a unicorn laboratory. And so, you know, sometimes just typing in silly things, typing in weird things can generate some really interesting concepts and ideas. So the thing with prompting is there really are no rules. A lot of people try and create like prompting guides or formulas, or this is the way you should prompt. And what I'm seeing, and this goes from reading a lot of the top Midjourney users, is that there really isn't one particular way to do it. So I do like to comma separate my prompts a lot of the time, because I found things like putting a comma in between green and house is very different from giving it greenhouse. So you do want to use commas a little bit to separate the different ideas out in your prompts. But there isn't really any specific way to do prompting. And in fact, there are a lot of additional tricks that you can do in your prompts, which I can't get into in this video because the video will end up being 6 hours long, but there's a lot more you can do with Midjourney. A couple more examples. I created these house images just because I kept seeing pictures of stained glass sinks and headboards popping up on mid-century groups that I was in and on some of my friends' walls, and I'm like, those are AI generated. So I think I'm going to have some fun with this and imagine what the rest of the house looks like. So this was my house that had more stained glass, that wasn't just the stained glass sinks and the stained glass headboards. And another collection I had which drew on nostalgia was, I was just remembering all those Stock Aitken and Waterman bands that I used to listen to in the 80s. They were kind of popular British pop conglomerate that churned out music. And so I had a lot of fun making fake Stock Aitken and Waterman bands from the 1980s. I mean, this could totally have existed. All of these people could have existed. And I think what's really interesting about AI is that it tends to recognize patterns in human behavior. Like, it looks at a certain phenomenon like stockache in a waterman, and it picks out the formula. It's like there's always like one guy with blonde hair and one guy with dark hair, and their clothes sort of match in a certain way, or they're always doing certain dance poses. And I think it's really interesting when you do a lot of AI art, you kind of start seeing how the computer analyzes human behavior patterns. And as a bit of a psychology nerd, I find that so fascinating. And I think maybe that's one of the things that scares people about AI. But I also think it's very powerful because I think by recognizing our patterns, and especially our behavior patterns, we can learn from those and actually progress and become more creative. So how do you get going with Midjourney? Well, you're going to need two things. You're going to need a Midjourney account, and for that you register at midjourney.com. And also before you do that, you're going to need a Discord account. So what is Discord? Well, Discord is really a chat room. It's like a big chat room. It's kind of a social media platform. And it's a great place to just hang out, talk to people. A lot of organizations I'm in, I know there's an improv theater I go to. They have everything organized on Discord so they can talk to all the people in the theater and connect with people. My kids have used it for years. And we actually have a family Discord, which during the pandemic was amazing. Because if we had people who were sick with COVID and were isolating in one part of the house, we could all stay in touch with each other, sharing funny videos, funny pictures, funny messages, things like that. So it's a chat platform and it's free. So what we can do is go ahead and install it. There are two ways to access Discord. You can download it as an app or you can open it in your browser. So we're going to click on login and I'm going to show you how you can sign up and create an account. So if you want to sign up with your phone, you can do that with a QR code here, or we can just type in an email address or phone number and register with that. So I'm going to go ahead and click register, and I'm going to type in my details here, and then we'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I've put in all my details, so I'm just going to hit continue and confirm that I am indeed human, and click the images with the squirrel. I think that's the only one with the squirrel. There we go. And now it's verifying us to log into Discord. Great. Okay, so the way Discord works is that it all works on servers. So a server is basically like a big chat room. It's the place where you're going to hang out with your friends, as it says, or you might just hang out with a Midjourney bot. So that's fine. We're just going to say create my own server for me and my friends. And of course, you can add anything to this. You can give it a picture. You can add all the fun things you want. Give it a cool name. You can create a topic. I'm just going to skip all this because we're just going to be using this for Midjourney. But I do recommend playing around with Discord. See if it's something that is interesting to you. If there's a club or something you're involved in, they might already have a Discord server. So do browse around and see what's out there because there's actually a world of interesting things on Discord. So I'm going to say, take me to my server. So this is your server. And I know it kind of looks like a blank screen and it's a little bit confusing when you first look at it, but actually it's pretty easy and you're not going to need to do that much with it. But if you want to, you can click here to explore and look for other servers out there. So, I mean, if you're into Fortnite, you can join their server there. If you're into, say, music, you can do a search and see what music communities are out there. So a lot of it is anime and kind of aimed at young people. So if you're a little bit older, you might look at Discord and be like, this is all full of young people. Totally fine. You don't need to interact. I'm just sort of showing you what's out there. But there's all kinds of communities. So there's actually a lot of value in Discord apart from Midjourney. There's one more thing we have to do before we can set up our Midjourney account, which is just go to your emails and look for the verification email. And you're just going to go and click that link to verify that you're a real person. Okay, great. So I am verified. And now I'm ready to continue to Discord there. And now I can go over to Midjourney and set up my Midjourney account. So we're at Midjourney and we're going to click sign in. And you can see it wants to access our Discord account here. So we're going to authorize that. And now it has set up a basic Midjourney account for us. Awesome. So now you can click join the Discord to start creating. It's going to send you an invite. You can accept that invitation and it should connect your Discord up with Midjourney. So now you can see it. So here's our basic server. And then underneath that, you'll now see a sailboat. So this sailboat is Midjourney. And you can see the screen has got a little bit hectic. So if you imagine really a server is like a Facebook group. It's like a place where everyone hangs out and where everything is organized. So we're really in this Midjourney server, which is kind of like a group. Now that group is broken into text channels. So we're automatically added to the announcements channel. So you can see announcements from Midjourney, and they're just talking about what they're doing, updates they're making to the system, surveys they're running, and so on. There's a recent changes, there's a status which tells you if there are any issues with the server going on at the moment. There's the rules, how to use the Discord channel, like don't be a jerk, they're pretty simple. And then there's some newbie rooms, and the newbie rooms are fun because you can see what people are creating in them. So, for example, if we type, imagine a cake, that seems like a newbie thing to do. Oh, it tells us we have to accept the TOS. So we're going to do that, accept the TOS, and you're going to need to subscribe. So this is the downside with Midjourney at the moment. At the moment, they are not offering free trials. They have done in the past, and occasionally on holiday weekends, they've sometimes offered a free trial. So you could keep an ear out for that if money's really, really tight. But honestly, I recommend biting the bullet and signing up. And again, I have no affiliation with Midjourney. They do not pay me in any way. I just think it's awesome. So what you're going to do is go over to their subscribe. And you can also find this, of course, by going to your midjourney.com and going manage sub. Now, you can start out with the basic plan. So you can subscribe with the basic plan, which is $8 a month if you're paying annually. If you switch to monthly billing, it's $10 a month. So I recommend starting out with the basic plan. Just get the $10 a month, try it out, see what you can create. You get up to 200 images. That's enough to really get a feel for what it can do. And then you can upgrade. Now, personally, I'm on the Pro plan. I love Midjourney. I use it all the time. And it more than pays for itself because you can create books, you can create image packs, you can create clip art, you can create stickers. Like there's so many things you can create with it that I found personally that it pays for itself just because I can create so much art that I can use. But you can try the different levels. The standard plan is great. It gives you 15 hours of fast time, which is more than enough to really create some awesome things. You could create some coloring books with 15 hours of fast time. Now, I will say that if you're going to use Midjourney seriously and you're going to use it commercially, you're going to want the Pro plan. And the reason you want that is because it gives you stealth image generation. And that's really important because Midjourney has a gallery. So what I'm going to do is switch accounts so I can show you the Midjourney gallery. So when you're logged into Midjourney, what you see is all of the images you've been creating. And this is really valuable because you can click on an image and you can save it. You can just download it from there. I use the midjourney.com app to download all of my images. You can also hold down Shift and select many images at once. And then it opens this downloader where you can download them all as a zip file. You just hit clear to get rid of that. When you're logged into Midjourney, you do see your own images. And you have 3 ways of viewing that. You can see all images. You can click grids, which shows you all of the small images that you've generated, as well as the big images. Or you can just see upscales. And I tend to use upscales all the time. So my workflow is that in Discord, I generate my grid, I upscale the images I like, and then I go into the midjourney.com app in the browser here, and I grab the upscales that I like. And then I download those to my computer, and then I'm going to upscale those separately again. So Midjourney, say they do upscaling, they only upscale it to, I think it's 1024 by 1024 pixels, which actually works out at about 3 inches. So in a book, that's not going to be big enough. That picture's only going to be about like this size. So you're going to want to upscale it more before you actually publish it. So I'm going to show you how to do that at the end of this video. We'll talk about upscaling some more. This is what you see when you're logged into midjourney.com. Now, what's really cool is if you click Explore, it shows you the community feed. And this really shows you images that other people have been creating. And it's such a great way to get ideas. And this isn't stealing or cheating or anything like that. The platform is literally built like this, so you can see people's prompts and share them. So for example, if we're scrolling through this and something catches our eye, like this cool picture of pancakes, we can click on it and see what they used. Breakfast, conceptual, abstract. That's all they put in. And not only that, if you scroll down a little bit more, it actually gives you additional images that are very similar to that. So if that's not quite the image you want, you can scroll down and see more images. And it gives you all the prompts, so you can see exactly how people did it. And so what you can do then is click on the menu and just say copy and get the whole command and just take that and paste it in Discord. Amazing! Now you've got new prompts that you can try out. Not only that, but you can explore the gallery. You can search the gallery. So if you want to find like, I don't know, let's say video game. You want to see what kind of art people are making that's inspired by video games? You can just search for that. And this is how you can learn, just by searching the gallery, seeing what other people are doing and using their prompts and then tweaking them. So let's say I like this image. I can click here and I can copy the whole command and just go and paste that over in my Discord, and it will generate similar images. And then of course I can tweak them. I can change out words, I can change out descriptions, I can change out art styles and create anything I like from that. So there's this very shared approach to Midjourney. There's a lot of people sharing prompts, there's a lot of people sharing images, and the system by default is set up that everything's public. Now, if you're like me and you're using Discord seriously as part of your business, you probably don't want all your images out here for everyone to grab and for everyone to copy. So what you're going to want to do is use a command in Discord. You're going to do /stealth. Now, you will need the $60 plan for this, but you're going to buy that and you're going to type /stealth. And that way, all of the images you create will be hidden and they will be private. Now, that said, it's probably going to be hard for people to find you, that unless they know your username, they're not going to be able to find and stalk you specifically. So you're probably going to be lost among all the huddle of people. So you don't need to go for that stealth option until you get big and you need to hide what you're doing. But it's really nice to know that that is an option if you're going to be using it professionally. And as I say, I think the $60 option can pay for itself very, very quickly. You can sell things on Etsy, you can sell things on Gumroad, and of course you can create books for KDP, which I think is one of the best forms of income because you don't have to pay any fees, you just put your books up there, and when they sell, you get your royalty. You know, it's better than a lottery ticket. It's like a ticket that lasts forever because every time your book sells, you get a royalty and you don't have to pay anything. You don't have to pay any fees or do anything else. Your book is just listed there on KDP. So what I do is I work by sending direct messages to the bot. So no one sees those messages. I'm not typing those in a newbie channel. I'm not typing them in front of anyone else. I am just working privately with the bot, and I work in stealth mode. So once you've set up your Discord account and you've added Midjourney, you should find the bot by clicking this messages. This top icon is your direct messages. And you should find the bot down here in your direct messages. So you can see I have my family Discord that pops up above it. And then underneath that is the Midjourney bot. So you just want to click on that. And that's how you're going to communicate with the bot. Now, Midjourney is very powerful. It does have a lot of commands. It has a lot of versions. And there's a lot of different ways you can use it other than just putting in text prompts. You can add image prompts. You can do more complex things with it, like blending images together. But I really can't talk about everything in one video, unfortunately, but I can show you some of the key things. So one thing you're going to want to know is settings. So settings is really useful to tell you how you're using Midjourney. And what I would recommend doing is making sure that you're working as a default in MJ version 5.1. That's probably the best version of Midjourney that you can be using at the moment. And if you prefer the raw version of 5.1, we talked about that a little earlier, that 5.1 gives you slightly more control over your images, whereas the regular 5.1, it puts its own opinions more into your images. You can switch to that. There's also the Niji versions here, which are great if you're doing anime. And I know a lot of people like to do their coloring books in Niji as well. That's an option. So these are all things you might want to try here. So I recommend personally staying in version 5.1. And sometimes I switch to version 4 or I switch to the raw mode. And there are also commands for all of this. So if you go to midjourney.com and you click on help and FAQ, there's actually a whole bunch of tutorials in here about how you can use it and find more commands. But I really don't want to overwhelm you with too much information if you're new to Midjourney. If you get yourself into a mess playing with these settings, you can just go reset settings here. The other thing I like to make sure is that I'm operating in stealth mode. So the command for that is just simply stealth. So I like to stay in stealth mode so that all my creations are private to me. So now you've got it all set up. The biggest thing you need to know is imagine. That is the key command for everything in Midjourney. So we're just going to do /imagine, and it should actually fill out that prompt word for you. Sometimes when you're cutting and pasting, you don't see this prompt. If that's the case, you just need to type it in. So you need to do /imagine prompt. And then after that, you can type in anything you like. So we can go in here and what should we do? Let's do San Diego at night, beautiful photograph. And we hit enter. And hopefully that's going to give us a beautiful picture of San Diego at night. Oh, there we go. There is our grid showing some images of San Diego at night. Now, what you might notice is it's not a perfect image of San Diego. There's buildings missing. There's buildings that don't really exist. But it feels like San Diego. It gives this vibe that could be San Diego. And that's kind of what you need to get used to with Midjourney or with any AI art. It is not brilliant at doing exact replicas of things necessarily. Some things it can replicate better than others. But in many ways, this is actually to protect you so that it doesn't create the same image twice. And so it doesn't create direct copies of any other image that's out there. Midjourney is actually created to not replicate copyrighted art. Now, that said, you can generate things that come very close to copyrighted art if you try. For example, if you put in Hello Kitty, you're probably going to get something that looks very much like Hello Kitty. And the reason for that is because it has so many reference images. It has studied Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty is a very simple drawing and it knows what it looks like. So you do have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to go deliberately trying to create things that infringe on copyright. I tend to stay away from things that look like Disney, Pixar, Hello Kitty. And just as a courtesy, I try not to replicate anything too closely that looks like a living artist. Like, I see people putting in things like Keith Haring or something like that. It looks too much like Keith Haring to me if you put his name in. It really looks like his images. So I don't think that's super cool to do that. That said, if you start mixing several artist names together, it becomes very unrecognizable. You wouldn't even know what artist names you put in there. So this is one of those things that's very tricky to kind of teach. A lot of it's by feel. That if something looks too close to someone else's work, or if you've deliberately tried to copy someone else's work, you might not want to do that. I mean, things like Lisa Frank or Thomas Kinkade, it's kind of obvious if you make a picture that looks like Thomas Kinkade or Lisa Frank. So while you might want to use artist names as a keyword in your images, you might want to stay away from an end result that looks too much like one of those artists. Because people are going to call you out and you really don't want to have any trouble with your images. So I say try and make your images as original as possible. And bear in mind that if there is a copyright claim, they're not going to care about your prompts. They are going to care about the finished product. They're going to care about whether the finished image looks like someone else's artwork. So just use your intelligence with this, use your common sense, and create images that look original. If you mix artist names together, that might be okay. Just stay away from saying, I'm going to make a panda in the style of Lisa Frank, and it obviously looks like a Lisa Frank panda. That's probably not the best idea ever. So I don't want to overload you with commands and with too much information, because I know this is a lot to take in if you're new to Midjourney. I'm going to show you a couple of things. The way that you add additional commands to your prompts is like this. I'm going to show you something. So if I'm going to do a picture, let's say, I'm looking around me trying to pick something. I'm going to do a beautiful mansion house on a cliff drawn in, let's do gel pen markers. And what I'm going to do is put these 2 hyphens, and I'm going to first of all do this in version 5.1. So to add a version here as a command, you can do -v for version space 5.1. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to run this prompt in version 5.1. And now I'm also run this in version 4. So to do this, all I did was hit the up arrow to show my prompt again. And I just changed this -v4. So that's how you can change versions in your prompt without having to go to settings and click it. And I do that a lot just because it's a lot quicker to just type these little modifiers on the end once you're used to it. So I'm going to hit that. And you'll see the difference between the 5.1 version of that image and the version 4. And obviously, I have no idea what it's going to generate because I'm just sort of typing things that come to mind. So there we go, pretty different results. This is the version 5.1 and this is the version 4. So I do recommend trying different versions because you will get very different results. And as I said before, I switch between version 4 and version 5.1 a lot because you can create in quite different ways with them. And I recommend experimenting. If you really want to get creative, you can try the Niji version, which again is the anime style. And to try Niji in version 5, all you're going to do is do -Niji 5. And Niji is Niji. Oh, it glitched and it's running it twice. So my guess is that the Niji 5 version is going to add some cute anime girls to it and it's going to make it super cute. So that's what Niji does. And there's actually a couple of different variations of Niji. You can do cute Niji, which is a very anime style, or you can do expressive Niji, which is slightly more Western style. So there's even more versions. Like there are so many versions of Midjourney. And the best way to get familiar with them is just to experiment, trying different images and different prompts with the different style. It didn't add any anime girls, but it did make these really cool images. So I do like this style. You can see there's already a bit more of an Eastern style. This looks kind of pagoda-y. So Niji definitely has more of that Japanese anime influence, whereas the version 5.1 and the version 4, they tend to have a much more Western style. A lot of people do like using Niji for coloring books because it has that cartoony anime vibe. Some of them look really good. I do find that there's a lack of consistency with most of the Niji coloring books I see, so do be careful with that. I don't think it's necessarily cool to just throw a bunch of coloring book images into a book. I think they should be curated really carefully so it makes sense and so that the art style's consistent throughout. But that is one way to do coloring books, is just to add Niji at the end. Another really powerful command that you have with Midjourney is the describe command. And I'm going to show you this one just because this is so awesome. So you're just going to do /describe. And then what you're going to do is drag in an image. And this can be any image. It can be a photograph you've taken. It could be a picture of the Mona Lisa. it can be anything you think of, anything that catches your eye, you can drag into Midjourney. I've got this picture here, which is actually one of my own images from my image pack. And what you do is drag in the image, and it's going to tell you possible prompts that you could use to generate similar images. Okay, it took a moment to think, and there it is. It's actually analyzed this picture and given you a lot of suggestions for what you could type in to generate something similar. So, painted background with hearts hanging from a tree in the style of light bronze and pink. And it does a lot of things here. Sometimes it'll give you artist names. Sometimes it'll give you just interesting keywords that you've never thought of. And it's fun because sometimes you see these things like, I don't know, cabin core or pirate core or cottage core. And you're like, what are these niches? And suddenly you enter this whole world of new niches. So you can actually get Midjourney to really teach you how to prompt and to give you ideas. So let's just take one of these and I'm going to paste it in and we'll see what it does with it. So I'm just going to pick the first one and paste it in. Now, I don't expect it to give me this exact image. It's not going to do that, but it will give me something, maybe it'll give me something similar. So this is a fun way to see what it's going to produce. So this command at the end is the aspect ratio. And the aspect ratio is basically telling you what the dimensions of the image are going to be. So the way it works is it's just literally a ratio. If you do 1:1, it's going to be a square. If you do 2:1, it's going to be a rectangle. It's going to be a long rectangle like that. If you do 1:2, it's going to be a tall rectangle. And the key thing to know with aspect ratio is that it has to be a whole number. So if you're doing KDP, for example, and you want to create an aspect ratio in a certain trim size, what you're going to do here is do -AR, which is aspect ratio. And if we want to do, let's say, 8.5 by 11, which is US letter size, we're actually going to round it up to the next whole number. So we're going to do 85 to 110. So we're just multiplying by 10 until we get whole numbers. So this is really 8.5 by 11 is going to be 85 to 110. So I'm going to hit that, and that should generate the correct aspect ratio for a US letter size. Now, aspect ratio is really cool because by playing with the aspect ratio, you can really generate different styles of image. Like a long, thin image is great for putting at the top of your journal papers, your planners, or doing this sort of tall, thin image. That's great for putting as a sidebar. So that's really how I make my image packs, is by changing the aspect ratios. And what's awesome about Midjourney is it's very aware of aspect ratios and designs accordingly. So the design it makes is usually suitable for whatever aspect ratio you pick. The way it composes the image tends to suit your aspect ratio. So you can see these are coming through now, these pictures that I created. And indeed, they're pretty similar to the starting picture. So there you go. This is how you can get descriptions from any image just by doing /describe and then pasting the image in. So there you go. You can create your own images that are kind of similar to what I've done. And there we go. These are the ones with the aspect ratio of 85 to 11. So these would fit perfectly in a US letter size if they were upscaled. So before I finish, I want to show you just a couple more tricks. I want to show you how to make a cover for your books, like you can see here. This is a yoga meditation cover. And I also want to show you how to upscale images. And in making this cover, I actually do something a little bit interesting with it. So I'm going to show you that first of all. I'm going to show you how I created this picture. So let's go back to my Midjourney gallery. And these are images that I created a while back. And this is the image that we're using on the cover of our book. So the way I created this image was actually a two-step process. So I made this in version 5. And what I did was, first of all, I was creating line drawings. So I created these line drawings of a girl meditating. So this is what I did. I did beautiful illustration of meditative yoga person and mandala, dreamy style, black and white. So I'm going to grab this image now and I'm going to save that so we can work with it. So what I'm going to do is go over to my Discord. And I'm just going to drag that image straight in there. I literally have that in my downloads, and I'm just going to drag it right there into the Discord conversation. So that has now uploaded this image to my Midjourney conversation. So now what I can do is actually click on this image and right click on it, and I can say copy image address, which gives me the URL of this specific image. So now I'm going to say imagine, and I'm going to paste, and that I've pasted in here is actually the URL of this image. And now I'm going to go to the beginning of my prompt. So again, I have /imagine prompt. Make sure you have that prompt there. If you don't have the word prompt in there, it's not going to work, and your imagine command isn't going to work. So before I get to this URL, I'm actually going to type the prompt in here. So I'm going to copy my prompt from the original one. So I'm going to paste it in there. Beautiful meditation scene, line drawn with bright, colourful watercolour. We've pasted that picture in, and now we're adding this prompt. Beautiful meditation scene, line drawn with bright, colourful watercolour. And we're going to hit enter and see what it does. Okay, the server's having a few glitches today. Sometimes that happens. These AI tools are very new. So if you get a glitch like this, fail to process your command, don't worry about it. Just run the command again and eventually it'll work out. So Midjourney doesn't copy things exactly, but it will give something in the same ballpark. So you have to be okay with that. You can't be like so specific that you're like, no, I want this exact same girl and I want her to have this facial expression or this thing going on. If you want to do that, that's probably a job for Photoshop. But you can keep re-rolling until you get something you're happy with. And it does make some really beautiful pictures. Okay, cool. So it's generated some grids of images with this idea. And you can see they're all sort of different examples of what we were doing. Some of them are a bit glitchy, like this one. I'm not sure what's going on. Her legs are behind her. So what you're going to do is look at these and see which one looks hopeful. If you're not happy, but it's almost there, you can just roll again by hitting this refresh button, and that will just generate another grid. So we have 3 grids here with the same prompt. Now, I like this image, so I'm just going to upscale that. I'm also going to run variations on that, which will generate images that are very similar to this one, but slightly different, so you can pick from that. That's called re-rolling. When you keep running the same prompt or you keep running variations on a particular image, that's like re-rolling, as if you're rolling the dice again and again to see what you get. But hopefully, I think we're going to end up with a good image. Yeah, this looks pretty awesome. Oh, you can see my variations have come through here as well. So if I prefer one of these images, like maybe that one, I can just upscale that. But it looks like the server's having some issues right now. There we go. Now it's doing it. Okay, so I like this. I like this picture. I'm going to click on it and open it in the browser, and I'm going to save it from there. I can also, of course, just go to my Midjourney account and save it from there alternatively. We have a copy of that image now. The problem is it is only going to be 1024 pixels wide, which, as we know, is about 3 inches. That is not big enough for a book cover. Now, you have several options to upscale your image. And 2 of the ones that I like, there is Upscale, which is free, and there's Topaz. So I'm going to open Topaz first of all. And Topaz is probably the most professional option available at the moment. It's expensive. I think it's about $90 or $95, but it works really, really well. So what's clever about Topaz is it actually uses AI to fill in missing details. So if you have an image that's too small to print, it's going to be too blurry to print, you can use Topaz to actually make the image much better. So if you look at this and we zoom in, you're going to see the difference when it does its work. There you go. So if you have a look at this, this is before Topaz and this is after. And as you can see, the lines are much clearer, they're less pixelated, and that's going to be a much better picture in print on the cover of your book. So Topaz is probably the best tool that you can use for this. For coloring books, I have some other thoughts, and I'm going to share those at some point in the near future, because I actually work a little bit differently with coloring books. But for cover pictures and for photographs, I think that Topaz is awesome and it is the best choice. So what you're going to do in Topaz is you're just going to say the output width. So I'm going to make that inches. So I'm going to want that at 8.5 inches. And then you just save it. And that's going to save the image and it's now upscaled so it will look awesome in print. Now, if you're not ready for Topaz, that's okay. There is also a free option, which is called Upscale. It's at upscale.org, Upscayl. And you can go to upscale.org, download the app, and then you can just run your image through that. I recommend Topaz because I think that's how you get the best possible results from your images. But honestly, Upscale, it's free. And it works really well, and your images will look good enough in print. Again, I don't particularly recommend this for coloring books. I think there's a lot more work that you need to do to make a good looking coloring book, and I am going to talk about that soon. But it works well for cover images and for illustrations and for photographs. So I am going to just talk briefly about tangent templates so you can see how you can put these into your book. It is my baby. I can't make a video without talking about tangent templates. Well, it's mine and Isaac's digital baby. So yes, we're going to talk about tangent templates. But let me show you quickly how you can turn your image into a cover. So I'm going to go to the Tangent Designer. And I'm going to go to a paperback cover and we're going to say 8.5 by 8.5. And our yoga journal is going to be 200 pages. So off we go. So here's our cover layout. And now I'm going to go to uploads and I'm going to upload the image that I just made. There it is. And I'm going to put that on the page and you can see it's a nice big image. It fits right there on the page. And this is what's cool with tangent templates. It actually tells you if your picture gets too big. So this will turn red. If I make this too big and I drag it out to bigger than it's supposed to be, it should turn red. There you go. See, image size warning. But if we have it just at the size where it fits on the cover, it's perfect. You can see here that the original image size is 8.5 and this is going to be fine. So there we go. That is the cover of our book. We can go in and put whatever we want here. So we can put yoga journal and we can change the spine text here. Say yoga journal. So I can click on the image and we can make the background a color like that. You can change the font. And you can really make this look how you want. If you don't want the title on the cover, that's absolutely fine. As long as you have it on the spine, that's enough for KDP. But you can make a book cover really doing this in minutes, maybe even seconds. It's really, really fast to do it. I like to turn down the opacity a bit. And so let's maybe make it 80. And then it starts blending in a little bit more with this. And you can get really creative with your images. We also have some filters. So if you want to play with the saturation, you want to play with the contrast, the hue, you can do things like that to change how the image looks. But yeah, you can go and create your cover in Tangent Templates in the designer there. And you'll end up with a really awesome looking book cover from your Midjourney image. And lastly, I also want to mention our picture book feature, which is just amazing if you're creating Midjourney images. Our picture book actually lets you lay out as many images as you want into your book. So what you do is you go into the Tangent Designer, you select picture book, you select a folder of images, and then you just do import images, and it will put those onto all the pages of your book and lay them out however you want to. So that's a really awesome tool if you're creating coloring books, if you're creating any other kind of art book. And that's how I've created my own coloring pages, by actually putting the images in a folder, and then I use a template page in between to create the black page with the image in between the coloring images. And the reason I do that in a coloring book is because it really helps with the bleed through. A lot of people like to have a black page on the reverse of their coloring pages so that markers don't bleed through. So you can see what picture book's done here. It's put all my cool 90s images into a book. You can also adjust the settings when you're doing this so that you can scale it to fit the page, which will stretch it out to the size of the page, which is really good for coloring books. And you can see how that works in this book, that the images go all the way to the edges. So you have lots of options with Picturebook, but it's a really, really good tool for turning your Midjourney images straight into an art book or a coloring book. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's been a long one. I know it's a lot of information. I am going to be talking much more about Midjourney and ChatGPT and all the AI tools because I love them. I think they're awesome. Also, please come and join our new Facebook group, which is called AI Adventure with Catherine and Isaac. And you can find that at facebook.com/groups/AI Adventure. If you have any questions about this video or anything you want to talk about, come and join us there. It's a brand new group and we're very excited to welcome you and talk about anything related to Midjourney, ChatGPT, or any of the other exciting AI tools that are out there. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give me a like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications of any future videos we make. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it was really helpful. And I hope you have a lot of fun if you jump in with Midjourney. I'd love to see what you create.